So recently I've gotten a lot of comments asking about this weapon system in my game Eavor. So I have some smooth animations that you're able to kind of combo together. And it's half procedural animation and half regular animation. It's honestly like really complex under the hood, but I wanted to make a video explaining all the different systems and the structure I use for it. So the general outline of my system, I want weapons to be completely self-contained. So I want to be able to just have a weapon scene and instantiate it on a player or an entity, whatever I want, and be able to use that weapon from that object. And that's kind of what I've set up here with my base scenes. So I have like a great sword base. This is simply a container that displays a texture and holds like animations and hitbox anchors and stuff like that. What I've done is designate specific nodes to animation capabilities. So if it has an anim, then this is something that's meant to be animated with my animation player. And this allows me to animate things like the weapon origin rotation and the position, and also the weapon hilt rotation and position. So when I go to animate something like a weapon attack, you can see here in my timeline, if I go through this, I'm basically just changing the position and rotation of those anim anchor points, and I'm able to add more animation anchor points if I need more complex animations. Basically, whenever I make an animation, I just want to have my animation anchors completely separate from other things like the hold distance anchor and also the weapon tip, because those are kind of moved based on a few different factors and also the size of the weapon and things like that. So that's really all my animation data holds, just a pretty basic animation for like /1, /2 is the same thing. And you'll notice that I have these markers in my animation, and these are a really big part of my system, and I'm going to get to them in a second. But really quick, I just want to cover the script for my sword. So at a very low level, I have my weapon class, and the goal of this class is just to make consistent behavior between weapons like available to them. So you can see like in the ready function, I have my players equip weapons stored globally. All weapons, when they're created, will just pull from the equipped item data, and it's instantiated in a different place, but this just ensures that our local like reference to the weapon item is set. I also have a setter function attached to this, so whenever it gets set, we obviously update the sprite and the H-frames and the position and the anchor of the weapon tip, which is used for some animations. All that stuff is just updated in the base class so that whenever I make a new weapon class, I don't have to worry about that kind of thing. I also have functions for like making a trail on the weapon tip or wherever you want to anchor the trail, boosting the player a little bit in case you want to like move forward when you do an attack, playing a sound effect. These are all inside of the base weapon class so that I can call them from animation tracks. It just makes my life a whole lot easier. Also things like creating hitboxes. This is all like universal functions, I guess, that you'd want in every single weapon type. I'm realizing the format here, there's like not enough white space, but I also have a function here for updating the direction of the weapon, which aims it towards the player. And that's the kind of the next thing I wanted to cover. Basically, depending on which direction your weapon is facing, it's going to be flipped or not flipped. And you can see that if I rotate my mouse and it goes to the other side, it flips the weapon. It's kind of a big jitter with the scythe is what I'm realizing, but I think it's okay. The big issue with this is when my animations play, they're made for one side of the weapon, and I want the animation to be the exact same thing on the other side. So if I wasn't to flip the weapon and I was just to play the same animation, here we would slice down, and on the other side, we would slice upward because it's just rotation that's being affected, right? This is not the case, though. As you can see, we just have the same animation but flipped. And this is something that I spent quite a while working on, and it's a very complex system. I'm putting most of the logic in the base weapon class so that all my weapons can have access to this function. But when a weapon is initialized, and you can see here if I go into the greatsword script, I basically load all of the animations that it's going to use, and then I pass it to this refresh animation libraries function. And what this does is it takes my animation player, it clears that animation player's library, and then it adds all of the animations that I've preloaded and also flipped versions of every single animation. And flipping an animation is not something you can just do in Godot. I know some of you are going to ask why I didn't just scale the weapon by -1, and that's just because I ran into some visual issues and stuff with the hitboxes and whatever. But I essentially made a custom function to flip animation values or keyframes on every single track in an animation. So you can see in my function here, I'm calling utilities.flipWeaponAnimations. This function, if we go to this, it will basically require the original animation, and then it loops through every track by index. It gets the track, figures out which type of track it is, and then we have some very interesting logic for actually flipping the animation. I'm not going to explain exactly how this works, but For rotations, I'm pretty sure it will just multiply them by -1. And for things like position, it won't always just multiply the position anchor by -1, but I think I have to only multiply the Y position by -1 from what I remember. It also works with skew. I'm not really using skew that much. From everything I've tested, flipping animations works perfectly. So from there, that's where we get this cool behavior of having an animation on one side and being able to do the same animation on the other side. Those are technically two different unique animations, just duplicated from the first one. Now, where this gets really interesting is if you look back into, say, my greatsword animation, coming back to these markers in my animation track, this one is essentially a blend in marker, and this one over here is essentially a blend out marker. And that's because if the animation is played from an idle state, I want it to play this like wind up section of the animation where you get ready to slash with the sword. But if the animation is chained into from, let's say, another slash, for example, the /1 can be chained into the /2, which is like an upward strike, right? Then I don't want to play that wind up section of the animation. I just want to go straight to the blend in position. And you might be thinking like, all right, why don't you just line up the end of animation 1 to be perfectly in line with the end of animation 2? And there's a few reasons for that. One, I have after the slash is done, it kind of has this very subtle like wiggle just to make the weapon feel a bit more alive. So lining that up wouldn't exactly work. I would have to have it static at the end of the animation when it receives input again. And the other reason is I want to have the freedom to chain any animations together. So because I've implemented the system, I don't need to spend as much time on animations or blending animations, and I can literally just tween any two animations together, like chain them together in a combo. So I've talked about these blend in and blend out. How does my system actually use them? And that's where I come over to my weapon states. So every weapon has a state machine. If you're not using a state machine for things like your characters, enemies, weapons, I would highly recommend doing state machines. They just make your life so much easier. And inside of my base weapon state class, I have this function called chain into attack. And what this does is it requires the animation that we want to chain into, and it requires a reference to the blend in marker and the blend duration. This is just how long the chaining animation will take. And it essentially loops through all of the animation tracks, gets their values, and then goes to the next animation, finds the values of where it's going to blend into. And really all it does is just make a tween for each one of those properties, or I think it's actually just one tween with each property. But bottom line is it makes a tween and it interpolates between the two positions of the animation. So it makes it look extremely smooth. You can see like I can click anytime after my weapon like allows for input. I can either click really quickly like this, or I can wait a second and do the input later like that, and either way it still looks good. And that's the procedural side of my weapon system, where it's basically interpolating between the current position of the previous animation and the blend in position of the next animation. And then I'm sure you picked up on this already, but the blend out marker is just when it allows you to do input again. So you can't actually start the next attack in the combo until the playhead is past this point. So from there, that's really it for the weapon system. Now I do have, you know, all these extra function calls, which I kind of showed in the base weapon class, that do things like boost the player, or do a weapon trail, or spawn a hitbox, things like that. The big thing I wanted to show is just how that system works, kind of my general like structure with it. Hopefully it gives you guys some ideas if you have a similar system in your game, but it just makes my life so much easier with the weapon states. So for example, I'll go through my greatsword states here really quick. For my idle state, I don't have to worry about aiming the weapon towards the player because that's all done in the base weapon class. So all I need to worry about is really just watching for inputs. So let's say we clicked on the attack button, I'd go into my attack state. This specific one holds a few different attacks, but this is also fairly short. We literally just have a process state function. Inside of here, we look for the attack button. If it's pressed, we chain into the correct attack. Because I made that system before, I can literally just say chain into attack, give it the next animation that we want to play, give it the point that we want to chain into, and give it the duration, and that's all it needs to make it look smooth. I have that one system under the hood for my greatsword, scythe, and lance, and I'm planning to do it for all the future weapon types. Hopefully that clears things up. I know a lot of people were wondering about how I was handling animations, so hopefully it gives you guys some tips. Not the usual tutorial video, but I know sometimes it's nice getting insight on larger systems like this, so I hope it was at least interesting to watch. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments if you have any suggestions for this system or questions about it. I'll be happy to answer. And also, if you want to see more videos like this, I kind of ran out of time to do a full-blown tutorial this week because I've been working on Eavor so much, which if you want to wishlist it on Steam, I would be extremely thankful. But if these insight videos are helpful, they're a lot easier for me to make because I actually have more time. I still want to do tutorials, obviously, but if you guys like this type of content too, then I might be able to just start making more videos, give you guys some more content to watch. With that, quick shout out to all the channel members. Thank you guys so much for your support. And as always, thank you especially to the EX tier and the Groundbreaking Godoer YouTube channel members. Anyways, thanks for watching the video, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. I will see you guys in the next one.